Doctor! Grandfather, I wonder where we are.
Well, one thing's sure, we're not at Southend.
Sea of Acid. You know, in all my travels, I've never come across anything like this before.
Hi everyone, TardisGuy123 here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the first Doctor story, The Keys of Marinus. And this is by Terry Nation. It's one of his two stories that don't feature Daleks. The other is the fourth Doctor story, The Android Invasion, which I quite like. This one, well, let's find out. So I'm going to be reviewing this in sections because it's very much split into separate sections. Each episode kind of has a different thing going on, and you know, you've got the 4 keys to find. So let's start off with the first episode, The Sea of Death. So, you know, it's quite a mysterious episode. You kind of land on the island. It's the typical first episode of the first Doctor story. You got all the mystery, mostly featuring the main 4 cast members, and then you finally get a cliffhanger at the end where you start to learn stuff, I guess. It's a little bit different here, and you've got the Vord going around and whatnot, but mostly it's just these 4 characters wandering around trying to solve a mystery. The Vord themselves, they look quite good. Story-wise, don't really serve too much other than just to be the villains to make the reason for them to go find the keys. Arbitan, he's a good enough character, I guess. You know, he's kind of the typical wise old character, but you know, he's got a bit of other stuff going on too. And the sets are good, I guess, for this one. You know, the sets, because it's split off into different ones, you have quite a few different sets for the different episodes, because you can't spread them out across the episodes. They have to be used for one individual episode for the most part. These sets do get reused, however, for the last episode when they return to the island. But anyway, nevertheless, strong start to the story, I guess. Could have been better, but could have been worse. Now let's move on to the second part.
For the sake of all my people, you must find the keys for me.
The second part is titled The Velvet Web, and it's quite an interesting episode, I guess. You kind of like got this city that looks to be really good, but it's not as good as it seems. There is stuff going on in the background. You get some funny scenes, like with the Doctor and Ian looking at the laboratory, which is actually an empty room with a dirty mug in it. That was quite funny, I guess. And then you got some interesting stuff as well. I think the resolution to it of just Barbara simply smashing the brains was a bit weak, but nevertheless, the episode works well enough. So now let's move on to the next episode, part 3.
It's coming again. The jungle is coming. When the whispering starts, it's death, I tell you. Death.
Part 3 is titled The Screaming Jungle, and along with part 4 is the 2 episodes of the story where William Hartnell's on holiday, so you don't get a Doctor. He's gone ahead for the 4th key. So for these 2 episodes, it very much rests on the shoulders of Ian and Barbara, because Susan and the other 2 characters whose names I've forgotten, Sabitha and Altos, that's it, they've gone ahead halfway through this episode, which means this episode very much rests on the shoulders of Ian and Barbara, and they do a very good job. It really shows that the show in its early stage very much focused on those 2 characters, and it was much more of an ensemble piece between the Doctor, Ian, Susan and Barbara, rather than just focusing on the Doctor and then having them as his companions. They're referred to a lot as the Travellers rather than the Doctor and his companions, and that really shows here. And you know, I like the idea of kind of like the tempo of nature and kind of like the jungle speeding up decay and whatnot. That was quite good. So now let's move on to the 4th part.
Don't you dare come near me! He's alive!
The 4th part is titled The Snows of Terror, and I very much get a Ice Warrior vibe from this. You know, not only because of the snow setting, but also the music has that kind of feel to it, I guess. But other than that, you know, it's different from the Ice Warriors. It's got none of the same plot points. It's just set in kind of an icy village and whatnot. The character whose name I've forgotten begins with Vassor, I think it is. He's an interesting character to have going on in the background and whatnot, and you definitely don't trust him for a second. He's played well by the actor who plays him, who I don't know the name of. And it's an honest episode which focuses on Ian and Barbara for the most part. Towards the second half, you get Susan, Sabitha, and Altos coming in and helping. But this episode actually feels like it goes on for longer than it actually does, and that's good. It means Terry Nation has managed to squeeze a lot into this episode without making it feel rushed or overlong. So that's good. And now let's move on to the 5th episode.
The whole place is one big booby trap.
Please, I only want to help you.
No!
The murderer is without any doubt in the chamber.
Kill her.
Ian!
Kill her.
The 5th episode is titled Sentence of Death, and it's very different from all the others. It's a court case story, it's the murder mystery one. And for that, it's quite interesting to be squeezed in such a short time. You don't really have time to build tension or build characters too much. But for what it is, it works. I think it's good enough that it works. And that's basically all I've got to say about this episode, really, because it kind of like flows on into the next one, because there wasn't really enough in the returning to the temple, fortress, whatever it is, the island thing. So the plot points from this episode kind of spill into the next one. So you kind of like get an episode and a half of the court case bit, and then half an episode to conclude it. So now let's get on to that half an episode.
Final key is inserted. My power is absolute.
Now then, the final part is simply titled The Keys of Marinus. It's a good enough title, I guess, for the end of the story. And, you get the Vords at last, kind of like doing their stuff, but there's not really much going on, to be honest. You just kind of have the simple Ian tricking Yartek. He puts the false key in, and that's it. That's the end of it, really. It's a bit of a downer of an ending, and I feel like they should have sacrificed maybe the court case stuff at the start, squeezed that onto the end of the previous episode, or maybe even made it 7 episodes. Just something to make this have more of an epic ending, because it's kind of like got this epic scope, having to travel all across the different regions of the planet and whatnot. And it's interesting how different those regions are, to be honest. And I wish I think design-wise they could have used with a bit more kind of like similarities, I guess, a bit more of a feeling that it is all the same planet rather than different locations, I guess. But it works for what it is. But anyway, I think the story itself, it's good enough. It's an interesting kind of like test, I guess, is the best way to describe it. It's an experimental one where they're trying out different things. But I feel from the budget perspective, you need sets that kind of like spread across more episodes. Whereas this, you need a new set for each individual episode, which means that episode is rather trapped to that one location for the most part, because the budget can't cover as many sets. So that's unfortunate, to say the least. But, as an experiment for the time, I think it comes across fairly well. There are some bits which I think could have been improved, some bits which could have been worse. Overall, Terry Nation has written better, but he has written worse, I'd say. 6 out of 10, probably a fair rating for this one. The Vord, an interesting creation, which never really got to be explored at all. I think there should have been an episode in here that kind of like the Vord are also after the keys, rather than waiting for someone to maybe not return. Maybe kind of have an episode where the Vord arrive somewhere that the Vord are, and the Vord are also looking for a key. But other than that, it's good enough. It's enjoyable enough. If you haven't seen it, then I would recommend it at some point. I wouldn't put it as a top priority that you must skip, but it's something that you could look into, if you see it, and it's not too high a price, and there's nothing better around, then I just say grab it if you want to. If you don't, well, you're not really missing out on too much. So anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Next time will be the review of Silver Nemesis. Bye, everyone.